Welcome to the Ohio Department of Education's Whole Child Framework Live. We're so excited to be able to connect with all of you, and we thank you for taking the time to be with us to dive deeper into the Whole Child Framework and its individual elements. As a quick refresher, over this multi-part series, we're deconstructing the Whole Child Framework, explaining its individual tenets, the practices that are under those tenets, and using this opportunity with all of you to showcase some of the amazing work from districts that we're seeing across the state. This is part 2 of this live series, so if you didn't get a chance to tune in for part 1, I highly recommend viewing it at the link provided below. As a quick overview, we discussed how the Whole Child Framework ties back to our strategic plan, Each Child, Our Future. How community and family partnerships are the strong base that encompasses every aspect of the framework. And we focused on 2 of the tenets, health and safety. I also had the chance to speak with Columbus City Schools and Wickliffe City Schools about the great initiatives they have put in place that align with the framework. A great education is only possible if we, as a community, collaborate to meet the needs of the whole child. This is the phrase that we heard time and time again from our stakeholders when we developed this framework, and it's one that I echo whenever given the opportunity. I love the central theme of this phrase, and it's ultimately the reason that community and family partnerships encompass the entirety of the framework and play such a major role. Represented by the gold and red bands, addressing the needs of each child starts with parents and caregivers and extends to schools and community partners that serve children. In the last episode of this series, we were presented with 2 great examples of these partnerships from both Columbus and Wickliffe City Schools. Columbus City Schools was able to design a multi-tiered system of supports administrative guide to provide a consistent and intentional process of support, while also partnering with Panorama Education to survey students and give a baseline of student needs. Wickliffe City Schools created a family resource center, which through help from their various community partners is able to provide food, clothing, healthcare, and other essential services to its students, their families, and the community at large. Let's go back to the infographic. In the middle, you'll find the 5 tenets of Ohio's Whole Child Framework, 5 commonly held beliefs reflecting optimal student conditions leading to success in life and learning. When students are healthy, feel safe, are supported through strong systems and relationships, are challenged and experience success, and are engaged in learning that is relevant and meaningful, they're more likely to enjoy learning, develop positive social skills, and achieve greater success. Each tenet is amplified by multiple systemic practices that create a common understanding and vision for supporting the needs of the whole child. In our previous example, Columbus and Wickliffe City Schools covered the tenets of health and safety. Today, we look to explore 2 more of these tenets a bit more in depth, supported and engaged. Before we dive in, however, we're so happy to have a brief message from State Board of Education and Whole Child Advisory Group member, Mark Lamancha.
Well, I'm Mark Lamancha, the State School Board member, but I'm also the CEO of a manufacturing company, Hometown Products. Through the new strategy of the whole child, the idea is to teach these skills like you would in sports, is that you're teaching them how to socially and emotionally be able to gauge how they're feeling and how they're feeling towards others and how they're feeling toward their environment in school and learning, and be able to self-regulate themselves. And it's kind of a coaching opportunity for them to learn young, just as they would in sports, but they're also now applying this to learning and can become highly successful academic athletes in whatever they're learning in school. John came to me and wanted to put together the Silver Apple Project, silver technology and Apple education, and bring industry-related problems into the school environment and help the teachers and the young adults, the students, be able to look at a problem as an opportunity for improvement with a local business and help us be able to think through it faster, because young minds are less fenced in by fear and their adventure, and the hands-on opportunity in so many ways. When you combine that vocational with the educational and integrate those together, it becomes more alive and more exciting and engaging for the students. What we're trying to do, and even with the Silver Apple project that we wrapped around our 3D additive printing, now instead of just one company 3 years ago, we've encouraged 7 other companies to integrate with other schools in our area with their industry-related opportunities for improvement, and to give the children in other schools this opportunity. I think the greatest failure that we have in business is not to realize that we need to invest some of our time and create these educational, engaging experiences for these young adults in school, or we're not going to be able to have great and awesome people come into our businesses because we weren't willing to invest in them. Supported and engaging are 2 of the tenets of this whole child strategy, and breathing life into it, that when somebody is engaged, they're more interested, they're more passionate, and of course, they're more engaged. And by having a supporting system with this strategy of the whole child, these systems and practices, as the practitioners in the school accept these and help, construct this and build this up so that it's not just a strategy, but actually a plan for success, then the students have a much more favorable environment in which to learn. One of my favorite sayings is, success is when vision meets reality. Let us all breathe life into this vision and become a living thread in this fabric of success in this whole child strategy.
Schools have always been places that engage in more than just academic learning. A school is a social system, people interacting with each other and people taking care of each other. As educators, we want our students to feel supported while providing them with an engaging learning environment. A student is supported when they're surrounded by qualified, caring adults that are able to address and properly respond to their individual needs and circumstances. This can include personalized learning plans, tracking student progress, or bringing in family members as partners to support and advocate for their children's needs. We are ensuring an engaging learning environment for students when they are learning and are actively connected to the school and the broader community. This happens when we reinforce the concept of citizenship or provide opportunities for our students to contribute and learn within the community, or offer experiential learning through field trips or outreach projects. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to speak with 3 educators that are really advancing the overall values behind the supported and engaged tenets. Dr. John Marshausen, Superintendent of Hilliard City Schools, Scott West, Director of Preschool at 𝗟𝗓𝗩𝗘 Local Schools, and Dawn Hall, the Head Start Director for the Athens-Meigs County ESC. In Hilliard, I was so impressed with the strides that they're making in social emotional learning, mental health supports, and building an overall culture of inclusion and diversity for their students, as well as some of the amazing partners they were able to bring to the table to assist with these initiatives. On the other hand, 𝗟𝗓𝗪 Local Schools partnered with Head Start to institute Connections events, conferences designed to build a partnership with community service providers and encourage family, school, and community relationships. It ended up being a really dynamic discussion, and everyone was excited to share their story of how these initiatives became a reality. Let's take a look. I'm excited to be with a group of amazing educators that are doing some great things around these 2 tenets that we're focusing on today, supported and engaged. What I'd like to do to start is just have each of you introduce yourself. John, why don't we start with you?
Hello, my name is John Marshausen. I am the superintendent of the Hilliard City School District in suburban Columbus, Ohio.
John's one of our amazing superintendents doing great work. Scott, how about you? And then Dawn, you're next.
I'm Scott West. I'm the Director of Preschools and EMIS for Gallia County Local Schools.
Hello, my name is Dawn Hall, and I am the Head Start Director with Athens Meg's Educational Service Center.
Fantastic, fantastic. John, let's start with you. The things I want to highlight happening in Hilliard really fall into that supported category, which is where students are really given the attention they need from caring adults and aspects of the community. Talk to me a little bit about how that is manifesting itself in Hilliard.
Well, one of the things, sir, that we really recognized early on was you have to dedicate leaders to the support and engagement of students. And too often we find ourselves kind of assigning those roles to other people in your organization. So what we've done over the last 2 years is we have a specific director at the cabinet level for social emotional learning, and we have a specific director for student well-being. And that support that allows us to both work on the preventative and the focus in the classroom so that social emotional isn't an and, so that it's part of what we do. We want that sense of belonging, that sense of support, that willingness to take risks and develop grit in yourself. That should be part of something that's done in a math class, in a science class, in the normal curriculum, not as something that's addition and then we get to math. So Molly Walker, who's our director of social emotional learning, is absolutely phenomenal. Partnering with Panorama, who does specific surveys with our students so that we can set measurable outcomes to hold ourselves accountable for the work we're doing. So having that specific director has really changed what we're able to do there. And then through that role, we build our partnerships with Nationwide Children's Hospital, with Ohio State, with our Centero and our other external partners. But then also there's the student well-being piece. Like many school districts, we struggle with our kids who they have emotional challenges, and it's hard to be a kid today. And COVID's made it worse. At one point, we had up to 12 students actually at Nationwide Children's Hospital admitted for suicidal ideations. And we've had students, unfortunately, been successful. And so we put a director in charge of and to oversee the well-being of our students. And this person now works with our guidance counselors, with our psychologists, and with our external partners to bring in those resources and those supports as we try to help all kids get through what kids today get through.
Yeah. It sounds like you're making it really personalized and just integrating it into the overall academic experience.
Yeah, we've struggled, and not everybody's there. We don't have it right. It's definitely a journey. To shift from that morning meeting, which we should be having in our elementary schools, but morning meeting needs to continue when you have conversations during the day. As we look at all of the issues that our country is facing right now, when we look at the political divisions, the pandemic, the race relations, all of this is part of social, emotional, and well-being. Are our teachers prepared, regardless of the subject or the grade level, when a student expresses a concern and wants to have a conversation?
Right. Okay, so let's shift to Gallia. Tell us a little bit about, again, we're featuring you under the tenet of engaged. What does that look like in the program that you're operating? And how does the program actually work?
The program Connections is complete engagement on behalf of the school, families, and our community partners. It was the result of a concern expressed by one of our buildings about trauma that was being experienced in the building and how it's impacting learning and those children. And we were fortunate enough to be invited by ODE, asked us to apply for the CDP program, which is the Collaboration Demonstration Project. And we applied, and it was exactly what we needed. It gave us the platform to build a program that provides support around the whole child, focusing on their health, their well-being, their social emotional development, the academic needs, by incorporating all three groups: school, family, and community. So that engagement was critical.
Terrific, terrific. So say a little bit more about what it might look like. Talk me through either from the child's point of view or from a teacher's point of view. What's the angle?
So this whole child framework is exciting to me.
Yeah.
To see the state take this initiative and bring this initiative forward. Because, and I don't know, how much you know about the Head Start program, but that's a federal program.
Yep.
That has been around since
Great
1965.
program. Yeah.
And it was founded on the whole child process. It wasn't really a school readiness program at that time. It wasn't an academic program. It was about meeting the needs of children. And they were concerned about their social emotional well-being, and they were concerned about health and kids having the importance of kids seeing a dentist and all this thing, knowing that every bit of that is what played into a child's success as they entered school. So the whole collaboration demonstration project that was led by the Office of Head Start was about Head Starts and school districts partnering up to make transitions between Head Start programs and school districts to be more streamlined. And so that these kids, because in Head Start, you're actually serving the most vulnerable kids in your community. So you're streamlining this process. So for us, when we looked at that, because we were already in a collaboration since 2015, we knew how to work together in a school building. We brought Head Start kids and ECE kids and students with disabilities and tuition paid kids. We had done merged that whole world all together. So we felt like we had it kind of tidied up within the school. And
we've been fortunate enough to to be awarded the grants for model literacy sites as a birth through grade 5.
Great.
So the huge part of that piece is the family engagement and community partnerships. So this connection piece has evolved from serving, we're a rural community, 160 families to now 958, and including those families birth to age 3. So engagement is critical, and the school in a rural community, and much like other communities, is the hub. It's the hub. That's where everything happens. That's where parents can get. So we worked with our community service providers to get them to the hub, and now they're a part of that hub.
Nice. I love how both of you have really talked about how the educational experience is shifting, right? It used to be a teacher might say, okay, I've got 20, 25 kids in my classroom. I'm gonna deliver my experience this way, and some might get it, others might not. But we're really having to customize, really understand each child individually, and then customize based on our understanding for what that child needs. John, I want to go back to you a little bit and talk about, you talked about the challenge that creates. How do you bring your partners to bear on helping effectuate that sort of personalized approach? And how did you bring partners to the table?
Well, what's amazing is all you have to do is ask. When you talk about children and you talk about the partners that are available to us, when you have conversations at The Ohio State University and you go talk to the College of Nursing, you talk to the psychology department, you talk to the College of Education, anything we've asked for, they've given us. From research to support to coming to board meetings to doing professional development with our teachers on our in-service days. Nationwide Children's Hospital, all you got to do is ask. And it really comes down to building relationships. Even in a large district, you want your guidance counselors to know your kids. We want every kid to have that person. And for some kids, it might be their band director. For other kids, it might be a coach or a teacher. You have to empower everyone to have their eyes and ears open. And we started several years ago with See Something, Say Something. And at first, See Something, Say Something was a safety position we took in times when we were concerned about threats to our school community. And it started with our police officers and our SROs working in our high schools. It shifted now to also being about mental health and the caring for each other as we build empathy and as we build a caring, our students who have been struggling, our guidance counselors hear from their friends who see something on social media. We've taken advantage of some of the state funds for the tip lines and for the apps, because kids don't want to call anybody on their phone. They want to send something directly from an app. So as we built those systems, you know where kids are, and you build the system so they feel safe supporting each other. And building that community has been huge. We are also incredibly fortunate with our police and fire folks. If we get a notification at 2 a.m. that someone's posting something that has one of their peers concerned, our police will do a well visit to a house at 2 a.m. And they'll go, if we can't get in touch, they'll knock on a door and say, hey, this is what we're hearing. And that sense of community, those relationships, then with the partners at the next level, has just been absolutely tremendous. So I would encourage anyone, just ask. It's amazing what you can do by taking that first step.
A lot of times I say, just pick up the phone and connect. So let me go back to Scott and Dawn. Talk to me a little bit. I mean, obviously, I love the fact because, so many times, the anecdotes around Head Start is, well, Head Start, that's a different program, and the school is over here. And I can't tell you how much I love the fact that you have brought things together, because you understand that those Head Start kids are going to be in your classrooms, so you might as well facilitate that transition and help each other, help those kids to make that transition more effective. Are there other partners engaged in the work that you're doing? And if so, what does that look like?
There certainly are, and it just made sense for us. When we opened, there was an opportunity for us to have those kids come to our public schools and preschools, and so the Head Start people, those are our people. Those are people from our community. Then so we went together, and it's been a successful collaboration. We've been very pleased with it. The other partners that we have are a variety. Over 20 partners have participated in this Connections event. Even our local vocational school. So when we have these events, we have to have children doing some activities and be engaged in things while parents are having time to talk.
Yeah.
And so the vocational school with their CDA program for early childhood, their kids came, organized activities based on the developmental standards. Our local universities sent their teaching candidates. They worked with us, provided all the supplies. We worked with the Area Agency on Aging to find out, because a lot of our kids are being raised by grandparents. What can they do to support our programs and support our families? So by bringing them to the hub and making them accessible in a non-threatening way, it's probably the most important part. When Dawn and I were asked in DC to talk about what was the drive, what thing did you learn most? Build the relationships first, and as Dawn says, meet them where they're at.
Probably the greatest thing that I saw as far as community and school and families coming together was sometimes I think that we as educators need to take that hat off, and sometimes we need to lose some of the alphabet letters behind our names for just a minute, because families, and I talked, so families transitioned in between different events during that time period. So I spoke with every family that came through that day. So I'm sitting with a group of like 8 to 10 people at a time, and through like 5 rotations, and we're just sitting in chairs in a close circle. And when you relate, that's where you start to build the relationships. You don't, engagement, and I think this is a big misconception sometimes, and at one time it was for me. Engagement is not who's bringing cupcakes to the Valentine's party. That's participation. That's not engaging. Yeah. Engagement is a commitment, me with you and you with me. Yeah. And I think through these Connections events that parents saw a school district that cared for the family.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just if my kid was passing math or science. They cared if we had food. Yeah. And they cared, they cared, who if we have a dentist, yeah, and if we have clothes. And I think that was the thing that is going to, and I told Scott, we'll never know. we can collect data, and that is great, but this is something I don't think we'll ever truly know how impactful it was, because I think it's going to transcend any kind of numbers we collect. I really
That's
do.
an amazing, yeah, I just love, that's an amazing story, because, I mean, you use the word relationship, but I think what you're also talking about is trust. Trust and a shared end, which is the parents care about the student, but now they know you also care about the student, not just in an academic instructional way, but really at the foundations of what does this child need in the context of their life. And that's why I love the name Connections, because I think you're connecting with them, you're finding that common ground, you're building that trust that we're all about the same thing, and that strengthens that relationship. And I also love the concept of collective impact, everybody kind of collaborating together to make a difference.
As a superintendent, I also think it's so essential. You're building trusts and relationships that will go well beyond Head Start to preschool to kindergarten. When you're working together, some of these folks who may have had a bad experience as students are now having a good experience as parents, and that your school districts can build on. It's such an important story when we look at what Head Start and preschool build, because folks don't see a difference between Head Start, preschool, kindergarten, first grade. And if that great experience starts, it gets them on a path to success for 13, 14 years as they work through the school system.
And unfortunately, COVID has made that really difficult. So we had to reformat our Connections approach, and now we have a virtual approach. But
it's not the same. And we're all just doing our best in COVID.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up with a little bit of discussion about impact. Give me a little sense of how you see things that are happening differently, or differences that these programs are making for your kids. Scott and Don, let's go to you first. How does it play out for little Susie or little Tommy?
I would think that the impact is the fact that we now know that this shared vision, this shared approach into serving the children and families of our communities, that when a child is struggling or has a parent who's incarcerated or another parent who's deceased and there are issues in the home, that child now has that network wrapped around them who can provide the support. And one of the things that we did on impact and continue to refine is we didn't want to leave anybody out. We didn't want to miss something. So we built this spreadsheet that allowed all stakeholders to have access to it, keeping in mind confidentiality. But if a referral came up, we could know the date it was referred, why it was referred, who it came from, and what the status of that referral was, and what agency it went to. And if we saw that happened on September 18th, and by October 18th, it hadn't been taken care of, we could correct it. So those type of things, being able to get immediate services to those families who need. And when we had most of our families were when we polled them about their needs, probably 60% of the needs that were expressed were for early childhood mental health services.
Yeah, interesting.
That's the impact.
Yeah.
And now we know what to do with Hopewell to develop the program, continue to refine with Hopewell in our schools.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great. John, you want to reflect a little bit on impact?
We've had a shift, and I think you mentioned this earlier. We're not just about academics. We're about academics. We're about well-being. We're about social emotional. We talk about you've got to take care of Maslow before you can do Bloom.
Right.
And in a diverse community, we've got to be able to do that. And the other thing that our teachers need to hear from me, I think they've heard from you, is our teachers need permission to be less stressed about some of the standards, about some of those things.
Right.
Because I believe in my inner core, if we do the social emotional better, the test scores are going to go up, even if you don't teach with the same intensity.
Yeah.
If they're ready to hear it, if they're ready to be taught, they're going to learn more. I did a video earlier this year where we gave our teachers permission in COVID guys, slow down. You're not going to get to it all.
Yeah.
It's okay. We need to listen. We need to be there for our kids. And as we look at COVID recovery plans and where we are all going to be as we live the hope and see the light of the tunnel with vaccines coming out of COVID, we're going to have conversations that we're not going to catch them up in 6 months.
Right.
We have to take care of ourselves. We have to give our teachers permission to take care of ourselves in order to be healthy learners and teachers and educators during this process.
Yeah. And kids will pick up on that anxiety. In other words, the anxiety of the adults then creates even more anxiety in the kids. They feel like they've got to do something to then catch up themselves, and it just becomes this spiral of people becoming preoccupied and stressed out and fatigued, frankly. Fantastic. So John Marshausen, Scott West, Don Hall, thank you so very much. You're being featured today because you are exemplars. There are many other schools and districts and ESCs and Head Start programs that can learn from the example that you're setting in the interest of helping all our kids succeed. Thanks for everything you do in the interest of meeting the needs of the whole child for your students. And thanks for taking the opportunity to share your experience, your challenges, your progress. And we know that we can always come back to you for more advice and counsel, and enjoy together watching lots of other places learn from you, do the things that you do, and then contour them to their own community needs and their own programmatic configurations, because there's no one size fits all. Just like with every student being different, every school is different, every teacher's different, every community is different, and that's a wonderful thing. Thanks again for joining me. This has been fantastic. And keep up the great work you're doing each and every day for your students and Ohio students.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One of the most exciting parts of our work here at the department is seeing how schools and districts implement initiatives that have been collaboratively designed. In addition to Hilliard and 𝗟𝗓𝗩𝗘, we found a few other notable examples of the work districts are doing across the state under the supported and engaged tenets that we're excited to showcase and share with you today. Child Framework is an important bridge between schools, families, and communities. The framework itself is just the foundation. The real successes come from how you utilize that foundation to create extraordinary learning environments for your students. I look forward to seeing how many more schools and districts customize the framework and use it to create conditions that support the success of their local learners, the success of the whole child. Interested in learning more about the Whole Child Framework? I invite you to visit our website at education.ohio.gov/wholechild. Visit it today to view the framework for yourself. There you'll find a number of resources and guides to help you on your journey to using the framework and configuring it to meet the needs of your local education community. In addition, on February 25th, we'll again be live for our final segment on the Whole Child Framework, focusing on the last tenet, challenged. As always, feel free to contact us with any questions or suggestions that you might have on implementation or other ideas. Thank you for what you do each and every day for Ohio students, and we'll see you again soon.